a national stadium, and a mega port. Those are what the countries have gotten from China. Yeah. And also in other countries in Latin America, for example, like in Mexico. Yeah. In Mexico, 4.1 billion US dollars of investments have been made, have been given from China to Mexico since 2005. $100 billion in annual trade with China have also been made in Mexico. In other countries, I can mention a number of countries because these are very interesting facts. In the Dominican Republic, for example, 3.1 billion loans have been given or made, and $600 million for infrastructures have also been made in the Dominican Republic. In Jamaica, another country in the Latin American areas, $3.16 billion in loans and investments have also been made. In Cuba, one of the closest countries closest to the United States, $100 million donation have been given to Cuba, and there is some sort of restructuring of large debts by China with Cuba. Yeah. So China has become Cuba's second trade partner after Venezuela. Yeah. China itself has also been looking actively for raw materials to sustain its massive economy with 1.5 billion people, 1.5 billion people population in China. So another one is that China essentially controls the lithium triangle in Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina. And ourselves in Indonesia, our country also has a big reserve of lithium for lithium batteries for electric cars. So in essence, many countries in Latin America also depend. Another aspect is communication, of course. Yeah, communication infrastructure like cell phones and internet technology. Now, the problem with the US is that, as the title shows us or tells us, that it's the US backyard, Latin America as the US backyard. So the US has left a vacuum in Latin American economy. And now the region in Latin America is filled with Chinese made products and infrastructure, right? China has a strong economic and political leverage in Latin America. In 2021 alone, China was the second largest trading partner of Latin America and the Caribbean, as much as $450 billion worth of goods, and that is a 40-fold or 40 times increase from the amount in 2000. Yeah, and in the year of 2000, it was only $12 billion, but now it has increased to $450 billion worth of goods. So China has heavily and massively invested in key industries in Latin America, such as mining, and then telecommunication, electricity, and energy. The economic relationship that China has taken with Latin American countries appears in three forms: trade, official, foreign direct investment. That's number two. Number three is bilateral loans. So you can see how massive the influence of China is within these three areas in terms of trade, official, foreign direct investment, and bilateral loans. Okay, so all of these, many of these Latin American countries, they want to be on the good side, on the right side of China. They want to gain diplomatic favor from China. Yeah. But again, going back to the question, the title is U.S. backyard, Latin American areas as the U.S. backyard. So our big question, and I hope this can be a question that would trigger the discussion here, is if the Latin American countries are the U.S. backyard, then with the presence and the influence of China, to what extent can China be able to take advantage of the so-called backyard areas in the eyes of the United States and change it or transform it into a front yard with economic and political significance, with all the political influence and economic and political alliances that it can make, that it has made with all these Latin American countries. So I guess that's a very interesting question that we have in our minds as we see Chinese influence in our environment, in our immediate environment, and now it has shown or demonstrated its influence in the Latin American countries. So can they remain as backyard when China has taken a very active role in its politics and economy? So I'm hoping that is a question that we can grapple together. At least that's a question that I have in mind. So I'm giving the time it to Dr. Liu Yi to start the public lecture, and I'm sure that your lecture will generate a lot of insights and as well as general discussions among us here, all the participants, as well as later beyond the discussion today. So thank you. I'm giving the opportunity back to Mas Jelang Ramadan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, our head department, Associate Professor Dr. Bayu Kristianto. We are really thankful for your brightful insight, actually. I would like to also welcome, I think, a lot of Dr. Liu students from China are joining us as well. I think so we have more than 50 students, even public, joining us now. Even here in our class, we have our students also. It's very nice opportunity to have a lot of students not only from Indonesia but as well as from China. So without further ado, allow me to read first Dr. Yi Liu curriculum vitae or his profile. So Dr. Yi Liu, we can call him Louis, has earned his bachelor degree from International Economics and Trade from Jiangxi University of Finance and Economics in 2008, and then he continued the International Trade and Economic Cooperation Master Degree Program in Kyunghee University in 2010, and then he earned his doctoral degree from Hankook University of Foreign Studies in the program of economics with field of concentration is our environment, economics, history economics, and international economics. His professional experience strengthened with the and nurtured with the teaching experience since 2008 until now, and he is now earned the degree or the title of associate professor since 2021. His teaching experience, as we know that majoring research methodology, global value chain, academic writing, frontier of literature in economics, and international economics, both in undergraduate and also graduate level, and environmental economics, historical economics, and international economics. His publication are a lot, and I can read you one by one, but it will take some time. So I would just like to give you a resume a little bit. So he managed to publish a lot of articles in international journals as well as books and also book chapter if I'm not mistaken. So one of his book is actually Sino-Mexico Trade Relations, Challenges and Opportunities, which published by the Springer in 2017. I hope that our students and all of the public here who are actually joining us would love to read this book and maybe get the access or download or buy this from the trade channel or shop. Then he has a lot of rewards like Outstanding Paper Award from the International Conference of Resource and Sustainability in 2020. And also the newest one is Excellent Paper Award, which is bronze medal from Annual Conference of China Korea Economic and Management Association in 2023. And without further ado, I would like to give this opportunity for Dr. Yi Liu to explain his lecture. To him, the time and place are yours. Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jilan Ramahan, for your kind invitation. And thanks for our dean to participate and come here and listen to my speech. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your invitation for me to give this lecture. Okay, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, but
Okay.
better if
Okay.
you zoom it, maybe you can make
Oh,
it.
okay.
There you go.
Okay. You can see it. Okay. All right. I think our dean covered, I think maybe 50% of my speech. He mentioned many things, many important things that I'm going to talk about. I will try to cover the important things that our dean mentioned, and try to answer our dean's question, how to change the U.S. backyard into the front yard. And okay. Mm, okay. I think it's afternoon over there, right? So good afternoon.
Yes.
And Sarah Mansour,
So
um,
yes.
thanks a lot for the kind introduction. It's my great honor to be a part of the American Regional Study Program. Uh, as you can see, and the topic is in the U.S. backyard and China impact on Latin American country. So I'm going to cover some important issues. But before I start, let me ask you one question. Uh, is this part hiding something behind? Can you see the whole screen?
Yes. Yes, it is in.
Oh, okay, all right, okay,
You can see
thank you.
the arrow as well.
All right. So to understand this topic, there are several co-issues. Uh, the first issue is, of course, is China-Latin America relation. And over there, I'm going to talk about the contents of the cooperation between China and Latin America. And I'm going to talk about the impact of the cooperation on Latin American economy and the society. In the second part, I'm going to talk about the US, China, and Latin America trilateral relation. Due to this special geographic position of the United States in the region, so the US can interfere for safety reasons whenever he wants. So the bilateral relation turns into trilateral relations. In the third part, I'm going to talk about um, the China-Latin America relation again and discuss how the Latin American countries react to the US intervention. Okay. The earliest context between China and Latin America began in mid-16th century, actually in the Ming Dynasty. The trade went through the Pacific Ocean, channeled by the so-called Manila Gallons. So the historians, they named the trade in that period Manila Galan trade. The Manila Galan trade carries Chinese silk, porcelain, tea, and ships them bring back crops and the silver coins back to China from Latin America. And those crops include corn, sweet potato, peanuts. Of course, they are regular in the New World, but they are new to China. And also, a large amount of silver was continuously flowing into China due to the trade. Manila Galan trade has positive impact on China and Latin America. In ancient China, we know that the money system is silver standard. So the inflow of massive amount of silver, it injects liquidity into the currency market in China. And that promotes commercial prosperity in China's coastal regions. It also stimulates the development of China's traditional handicraft industry. And the New World agriculture products enriched the people's material lives and also promote China's agricultural production. Of course, for the Latin American side, they also benefit with the Manila-Galan trade because it promotes their commodity economy and create capital accumulation. However, after 300 years, the Manila-Galan trade was interrupted due to the outbreak of Latin American independence war in early 19th century. Um, because uh, uh, because Spain want to prevent Latin Americans' independence by stop Mexicans' trade with the East, so that to stop the war financing. But because of this, the three countries in the Gulf trade came into halt. Of course, this story I just talked about is a kind of like an appetite. But I want you to remember there's a word, there's a saying said by Mark Twain: history does not repeat itself, but it always rhymes. So after I finish the lecture, I guess you will see there are some forces in modern history. It is kind of like similar, but nowadays China and Latin America is no longer the same. Okay, so now let's talk about the border relations between China and Latin America. There are five types of cooperation I'm going to talk about. Our dean mentioned trade, mentioned investment. Maybe I will mention another two, military and the ODA. And let's firstly talk about trade relation. Before China joined WTO in 2001, the trade volume between China and Latin America are very limited. There's only about 14 billion US dollars. But yeah, just like our dean said, after 20 years in 2020, it increased by 35 times. And for China, it increased 30 times. And for Latin America, it increased even more, like 49 times, almost 50 times. This is a great improvement. So for the graph, we can see the US now, the first graph, as you can see, US is still the first trading partner with Latin America. But it is estimated that in the year of 2035, that is 10 years after now, China will surpass the US to become the #1 trading partner with Latin America. You may ask a question, why the trade grows so fast? The answer is there is a significant difference in export and economic structure between the two sides. Latin America country, as our dean said, they are abundant in resources. They have over half of the world lithium. Yeah, lithium also mentioned our dean, and agriculture products, bean, soybean, livestock, etc. And they also have about half of the world copper and silver. And on the China's side, we know that China is the largest manufacturer in the world. It exports many manufactured products, you name it, everything, broadcasting, communication equipment, electronics, machinery, cars, clothing, trucks, everything. So there's a kind of like a complementary economic structure between the two. Because of the complementary economic structure, up to now, over 10 Latin American countries export over 10% of their overall trade commodities to China, particularly Brazil, Peru, and Chile. And three of them is about 30%. 30% of their export goes to China. China established FTA with several Latin American countries, including Chile, Peru, Costa Rica, Ecuador, and Nicaragua. China is also negotiating FTA with Uruguay, Panama, and Colombia. And we can see from the list here in this year, in the beginning of this year, two new countries signed FTA with China. One is Nicaragua and another is Ecuador. Since Chile is the first country that signed FTA with China in the age of 2005, it's about 10 years later. 10 years before they signed the FTA. So to understand how FTA impacts on the economy, we can take Chile as an example. In the age of 2022, the bilateral trade between China and Chile reached about 37 billion US dollars, and the trade volume enlarged 10 times. So it's kind of like 1 year, one time, 1 year, 2 times, and in every year you add another time, 10 years, 10 times. And we know that Chile has advantage in agricultural products. So the import tariff we can see from the table is 0. And before the contract was signed, there are negotiations. Countries before they sign, they negotiate with each other to avoid some trade shock. And China and Chile also had done that. China has absolute advantage in commodity and manufacture, so the tariff on manufactured products are over 20%, and motorcycles are like 30 to 45%. It's quite high. Because there's a 0 tariff on agricultural products, so Chile export a lot of cherry to China. As you know, in Chile, in every winter, Chile snows. And when the snow covers the fruit trees, snow freezes and kill all the pests. So there's no need for pesticides. And the daylight in Chile is very long, so that the cherry produced in Chile is sweet and very large. And due to the 0 tariff, 85% of Chile cherries are exported to China. Chinese food lovers, they love cherry. They consume 500,000 tons of Chile cherries that provide 500,000 provide 500,000 jobs to Chilean farmers, to the cherry farmers. Kind of like 1 ton for one farmer. So 500,000 tons of Chile export support 500,000 cherry farmers. And we know also Chile is a major copper exporter in Latin America. Over 77% of Chilean copper ore and refined copper were exported to China. Let's talk about foreign aid and loan. Everyone wants to know how much loan China is provided to the world, but nobody actually knows the number. It is estimated in the age of 2019 that there is about 5.5 trillion US dollar of unpaid loan borrowed from China to the world. It is about 1/3 of China's GDP in the age of 2020. So it's about 1/3 of 2020's GDP, and okay. China also provide loan to 22 countries in Latin America. From the age of 2013 to 2021, there's a total of 185 billion US dollars loan, around 30 billion US dollar loan in every year. Most of the loan went to power supply in infrastructures. We're going to talk about that later. I'm going to give you some examples. page. FDI. China's FDI stock in Latin America is 700 billion US dollars in the end of last year. That accounts for a quarter of China's total foreign investment. This is kind of 1/4 of China's FDI stock is in Latin America. And China's FDI, it actually has directions that starts from south to the north, and move to the north, and then it starts from the west to the east. Let me give you some example. From 2019, Brazil was the largest investment destination. There's around 78.6 billion US dollars invested in Brazil. That account for 24% of total investment in Latin America. It's about less than half goes to Brazil, and other 50% goes to Peru, Mexico, and Chile. But the situation changes. After 2020, China's FDI started to accelerate in Chile, Colombia, and Mexico. That accounts for, during that period from 2020 to 2021, China's FDI account for 31% in these three countries. 31% of the total investment in China goes to these three countries, Chile, Colombia, and Mexico, in 2020 to 2021. Okay. From 2005 to 2020, China built 138 infrastructure projects in Latin America. They valued about 100 billion US dollars. And that provides 6 million jobs to the local people. That is reported by Xinhua News. The FDI is mainly promoted by the platform called China CELAC Cooperation Forum, and another one is China Latin American Infrastructure Cooperation Sub-Forum. There is a research that has been done by an institute called Beta, and it is said that China also invested in money ports in Latin America and the Caribbean countries, 10 ports. I'm going to give you one example, the port of Paranaguas as an example. That is a picture for Paranagua port. Paranagua port is located in the southeast of Brazil. It is the second largest port for containers transport. It is also the largest port for food transportation. One Chinese company spent almost 20 years to build this port, to enhance this port. And after the enhancement, the port cargo shipment capacity doubled from 50,000 tons to 100,000 tons. Energy, one of the energy FDI is the oil field. It's one of the most important investment for China. The oil field investment account for 35 billion US dollars. And China and Latin America, they organized some arrangement called oil for loan arrangement. That is, I give you loan, I help you to build the oil field. You pay me back money by giving me back the oil. That is basically the cooperation for the oil loan. China provides 3 billion US dollars loan to Ecuador. And so Ecuador, in return, sells 90% of its production to China. There are two Chinese companies that invest heavily in oil fields overseas. One is called CNOOC, or the China Ocean Oil Company. And they invest in a very large oil field in Brazil in the Santos Basin. And another company is the CNPC, or the National Petroleum Corporation. That company did similar things like the CNOOC. CNPC has a joint investment together with the Brazilian national petroleum company, Petrobras, and they did it in the same region in the Santos Basin. I will give you some other example for the energy projects. China is investing in the traditional energy sectors, as we mentioned before, in the oil, and China also invests in the renewable energy in many countries. Two banks are helping China to do it. One is the China Development Bank, and another is China Export and Import Bank. They financed 10 billion US dollars. The total investment is like 44 billion US dollars globally. From the age of 2000 to 2020, China generally increased the percentage of renewable energy as a whole, as the total investment. So around 15% of the total energy projects that has been done by China are renewable. And this number is increasing, still increasing. The picture you can see is one of the hydropower projects that has been done by China, a Chinese company called China Three Gorges. It is a state-owned power company. We know that China's Three Gorges Dam is built by them. It's the largest dam built in China. And China Three Gorges Company helped to build two important dams in Argentina. They are called Condor Cliff and Arancosa Dam. And China also helped Bolivia to build a dam called Cosita hydropower plant, and some other projects that has been done in Ecuador and Peru. I'm going to give you some other example for the renewable energy. That is the solar park and the wind farm. Two companies did that, financed the projects. One is Export-Import Bank, and yeah, it's the only one. And Export-Import Bank of China, they financed the wind farm and solar park. One of them is built in Argentina, and another is in Sierra wind farm in Chile. The solar park in Argentina is the largest solar park in the whole South America. Caucherry solar park is the largest one in the whole South America. And Sierra wind farm is the largest in Chile, largest wind farm in Chile. And now I will talk about the China's FDI in manufacturing sectors. China invests a huge amount of money in 5G network in Latin America. I will give you some project names that has been done by Huawei later. China's another company, China's Tibet Summit Industrial Corporation, they invested 1.7 billion US dollars in Argentina to build a lithium factory projects. It's kind of like not a very famous company in China. If you ask the Chinese people, they don't know this company, but they have invested a huge amount of money in Argentina. And many of the companies, they are in the supply chain and not well known by people. And BYD, I'm sure you know that company. Our Dean also mentioned BYD electrical car. BYD built 3 electrical factories. It is trying to build under construction in Brazil. 3 electrical car factories are under the way. This is a list of some of the projects that has been done by Huawei in Mexico. We can see the amount of investment is increasing. And after, you can see after 2001, there's no data report. Nobody can find how much money invested. I think because of the United States, the U.S. Sanction, they don't want to show how much money is invested. And these projects, some of the projects are like ecosystem program, clouds, 5G network, smart manufacturing factory, and mobile factory. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Railway. Or Dane just mentioned in the lecture how fast the high-speed railway is that is jointly built by our 2 countries. The first time when I was on the train, I was also astonished, because it is just not very long ago, about like 10 years before, when I go from my hometown to Jiangxi University, I spend 13 to 14 hours. But now, do you know how much time it takes me from my home to my school? It takes about 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. So 14 hours to 4 hours, you can't imagine how happy I am. And so China is trying to expand the influence of the railway in the world. And here you can see the map is some projects that China is trying to jointly build together with Brazil. All of them are like trans-Pacific train. And we know that the railway is very important due to insufficient international saving and limited investment capacity. Many governments, they know that the trains are important, but they cannot afford it. And of course, the private sector, they won't afford it also. So railway construction became the primary target for the Belt and Road Initiative. China proposed the China South American Railway Corporation initiative. China also prepared everything to finance it. And there's a principle, and there's a very important principle for the corporation. It is to respect the bilateral and multilateral equality, and also to respect the independence and the voluntary participation, no force. And so the main goal of the railway expansion is to use the railway construction to promote the cooperation and to develop some other industries rather than transportation, rather than the railway, such as highway, ports, airport, manufacturing, agriculture, mining, etc. So it's from the railway to expand to other sectors. Yeah, you can see some of the names of the railways between China. I mean, that is built by China, that connects the Brazilian country, connects Brazil, Peru, connects Brazil and Paraguay, and connects Chile and Brazil. And there are some other 2 railways. The previous 4 are so-called horizontal trans ocean railway, and the other 2, as you can see, from north to the south, these are also 2 important railway. One is connects Brazil only, and another one connects Buenos Aires with Santa Cruz in Argentina. Okay, now let's talk about the diplomatic relations. After President Nixon visited China and recognized China as the solo legit government in the age of 1972, other Latin American countries followed and established the foreign relation with China. For example, Mexico and Brazil, they established foreign relation with China in same year as the United States in 1972. Of course, we know Cuba was the first country that recognized China. Since Brazil and Mexico, since Brazil and Mexico, other Latin American countries started to recognize China. That is kind of like the beginning of the foreign relations. But to be astonished, I'm going to give you another form later. Many Latin American countries started to recognize China in the recent decade, not very long time ago, you know. I will give you some example later. So among all the among all the countries in Latin America, only 6 countries up to now has not yet recognized China, yet has not established foreign relation with China yet, and 7 countries has established strategic partnership with China. They are Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, Mexico, Peru, and Venezuela. They are also the largest trading partner with China, as we just talked about. And another thing is 21 countries out of all Latin American countries joined the OBOR initiative. Majority of them are now in the OBOR initiative. 13 countries, they adopted 5G network of Huawei. That is maybe great development, I think, because of the U.S. sanction. I think Latin American countries are also under big pressure by taking Huawei, by adopting Huawei's technology. Okay, now let's talk about the military cooperation. There are 4 types of military cooperations that China always done with many other countries in the world, including Latin American countries, including medical service, humanitarian medical rescue, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief. And the last one is mine clearance activities. They provide training. They provide training to the mining experts. They also provide guidance and donate equipment for the mining. These are the military cooperation. There is important there's an important forum between China and Latin America um, every 2 years. In the year of 2020, the fifth uh, Latin American China Advanced Defense Forum was held, and the theme of that forum is peace and cooperation, with the aim of strengthening cooperation between China and the Latin American countries, jointly addressing the risk and challenges, and also maintain world and regional peace. China also trade weapons with Latin American countries, and but most of our arms and weapons are defensive and light arms, like a rifle, like a grenade launcher, submachine gun, armed vehicle. Yeah, only one which is probably more defensive is like the anti-ship missile. Okay, here we go to the um, important part. I mentioned many projects before, and now I want to discuss from the Chinese government's view how to understand the projects, as I just mentioned, how to understand why there are uh, many projects like that. In order to understand the above projects as a whole, we have to mention the so-called five connectivities. The five connectivities are an important component of the OBOR initiative. They include policy, infrastructure, unpadded trade, financial integration, and people-to-people bonds. This is kind of like a overall OBOR initiative for every country. And China also have kind of like two upgraded five connectivities with Latin American countries. One of them is the so-called 2 decades goal for trade and investment. It is firstly mentioned by Chairman Xi Jinping. He wanted, he wishes, he have two wishes. The first wish is to increase the trade volume to 500 billion within 10 years. And another wish is to have a total investment in Latin America for 2050 billion US dollars. But as you know, in the end of last year, the both of the targets are achieved. The total trade between China and Latin America in the end of last year reached 5,000 billion US dollars. And the FDI, the total FDI from China to Latin America nowadays is 700 billion US dollars. That is over 2 times more compared with the goal, 2.5 times more. And China also has another upgraded version of the OBOR initiative, that is the so-called 3x3 model, a 3x3 model. So we can understand the 3x3 model as kind of like a cooperation to enhance capacity cooperation. Of course, manufacturer capacity cooperation. How to do that? Through three channels. First one is the so-called three major channel. That is that is proposed based on the advantage for both countries, both China and Latin America, so that to achieve the mutual benefit and win-win cooperation for both parts. The logistics are just like the projects I just mentioned, railway, roads, ports, etc. They are the infrastructure connectivity. Um, the the power and powers are the hydropower dams, the oil field, the wind farm, the solar farm, etc. Information are the 5G network, 5G network that is built by Huawei. The second one, three main bodies. The three main bodies are the entities that carried out the corporation. So who actually did it? Who actually does all the projects? The final one, the three financial channels are actually the financial support for the corporation. So who provide money? So the 3x3 channel are the upgrade, kind of like an upgraded version for China and Latin America.
Doctor, we have 3 minutes left. Would you mind to faster a little bit more?
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, okay. All right. And I have some other cases to provide, and I'm going to talk about how how the U.S. intervened in Latin America cooperation, and why the United States consider China and Latin America countries' cooperation as some kind of a threat. Maybe I can just go fast to just let you see what that is. So, the U.S. intervention. Um, why did the United States intervene? There are there are many reasons. There are a lot of reasons why the U.S. want to intervene. Um, there's a scholar from Chinese Academy of Social Science. He mentioned in his article that once when China entered into the U.S. backyard, the relation between Latin America is not just bilateral; it became trilateral. And once the security issues are touched, it will be subject to the U.S. intervention. So the U.S. intervened in the cooperation through economic connection, financial control, and security controls, and also for the reason of ideological control, military control, resources controls. I don't think I have time to explain all of them. Maybe if you are interested in any of the controls, we can discuss that later. I can explain that to you later. And intervention. Basically, the United States intervened in China and the Latin America relations through direct intervention and indirect intervention. The direct intervention meaning economic sanction and trade restrictions. The United States restricted, we know, a lot of Chinese activities in that region and increased the tariff and we implemented sanctions to Huawei and the ZTE and many other countries. Um, not only countries, but I mean, many companies, not only companies, but also personnel, university, and the Chinese government officials as well. And another intervention is the political intervention. There are many measures that the United States can do, such as isolate a few radical left-wing countries, win over the majority, and divide Latin American countries, force them to choose between China and the United States, and interfere in the internal affairs through political means, such as supporting opposition parties or intervening in the presidential election to incite color revolution against the left-wing governments put pressure through diplomatic means, asking them to limit cooperation with China or change their policy towards friendly and to hostile. Okay, I have to speed up. And the impact, we have to mention that there is great negative impact because of the United States intervention, not only to Latin America countries, I think, but also to the whole world, also to China, also to the United States himself, and the U.S. also proposed some initiatives such as the nearshore outsourcing, as well as friendly shore outsourcing. The nearshore outsourcing is like the United States trade with only the neighbors, so that it will cut through China. Trade only with a friend, with the friends. That also cuts the supply chain with China, and other indirect measures are like the United States announced two important programs in the G7 meeting, the G7 summit meeting in the year 2001 to 2021 to 2022. But as you know, none of the initiatives proposed by the United States are useful. They want the Latin American countries they don't want Latin American countries to play with China, but for the replacement, how about for the replacement? The U.S. does not want to pay money. All the two programs I just mentioned, the United States only paid around $6 million in total, compared with that investment from China. That is just it's just useless. $6 million in total for the U.S. version of OBOR and U.S. version of the investment. Okay. How the Latin American countries react towards the intervention? China is influencing Latin American countries in a way that it helps the Latin American countries to be more economic and political independent. More and more countries started, and they are willing and able to say no to the American hegemony. They are more independent in their foreign policy choices. There are many examples. One example is the recent meeting held last year in the United States, the Organization of American States Summit meeting. In the meeting, the United States unilaterally changed the themes into promoting the so-called American Economic Prosperity Partnership Plan. That is something like China's OBOR, and also they want to revitalize the Inter-American Development Bank so that to counteract the China Infrastructure Investment Bank. And also strengthen the American-led supply chain, trying to decouple that supply chain from China. However, most of the Latin American leaders refuse to participate, refuse to be a part of that. And some countries like Mexico directly said no. The president said, I won't be in that summit, but I will go to America. So Donald Trump administration have done some intervention in Latin American countries in order to in order to impact the China and Brazil connection, China and Brazil ties. But it seems like it is it's not that the cooperation between China and Brazil is no longer influenced by the government's ideology, either right wing or right wing. It does not impact the cooperation uh, much. It is not so. It's not subject to. It's not uh, suspectable to the ideology influence. Because there's a relation built between the two countries through every channel, through every level, from the top to the middle to the low governments and business and companies. So it's very hard to move that. I'm about to end. I have a kind of like a last two slides. So, uh, so will Latin American countries they entirely depend on China? Um, I think probably no. So for most Latin American countries, they are trying to have a policy, so-called manual style diplomacy. So it's kind of like you give me a menu, either China or the United States. You give me a menu. I see your menu, and I decide what I do. I decide who I play with. Um, and and for China, China can bring a lot of tangible benefits to Latin American countries, uh, transportation infrastructure, and many other things. Well, for the United States, it will also be very important party for Latin American country because uh, the United States is still the largest market for Latin American countries and also the major FDI source. So here we go. So for the rule of the speech, the reason why I think, I think maybe probably, I'm not very sure. Probably this will answer our Dean's question. So after the lecture, after we learn the competition between China and the United States in Latin America, we can see that the United States they are trying, they are desperately trying to maintain the world unilateral order everywhere, including Latin America. And the goal is to prevent China's resurgence and try to prevent the establishment of new multi-level world order. Um, and the battleground we can see is very intense, and it's going to be intenser and intenser in the future. Um, However, the intense like trade war, it harms every country. It harms not only China but also the United States itself. They have it increases their CPI and decreases their supply chain. So destroy their supply chain. So it harms the world. So I think mm, if it continues like this, there will be no destiny. Uh, as the Mark Twain said in the beginning of the lecture, history repeats but always rings. So um, I guess probably you have some understanding of from your own um, how to understand China and U.S. competition in Asia and in other regions as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of my lecture. Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome, Dr. Liu. Such a very great explanation. Anyway, we are having a lot of meaningful insight from you, especially about how China and also US are really competing in terms of economics and also political things through diplomacy and many ways in Latin America. So I would like to give the first chance, the first three questions in a row, maybe for our students, also public, anyone who actually participate in this public lecture wish to ask something, please click your raise hand button in the reactions. Or my students in the class, do you have any questions for Dr. Louis? Or for now, para di orang tua, Mas Azril, would you like to ask him?
Uh, Maybe I have one question for you. It's kind of battlefield at the Latin America between China and America, but as if we reference to ideological in Latin America, there are more socialist people rather than.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you clearly.
You know, okay.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. Can you go closer to the microphone, please?
So how about now?
It's still not that clear, but let me try. Let me try.
Okay. So maybe I open my microphone on my Zoom and then.
Oh yeah, that's better. That's better. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, it's much better.
Okay. Sekarang gantian. Nggak bisa. So can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I'm sorry. It's echoing right here.
Oh, wait. Okay. Yeah, okay. You can ask. Let me turn off my mic.
Okay. So, uh, kayaknya nggak bisa. Okay. I'm closer to the mic. It's better. So my question is, it's like battlefield in the Latin America between China and America, but I think there are more socialist people in Latin America rather than in America itself. But yeah, I mean, this is quite interesting. Maybe if we talk about how people in Latin America think themselves as a socialist people, China will be win this battle. But America has a lot of maybe a lot of tricks, a lot of political strategies. So, what do you think about the future of Latin America and China? Because everywhere right now in worldwide, there are Chinese power, there are China. Every countries, and even in Brazil and China, they build up the bricks to to contend the American power in the economy and political as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your question. Let me try to understand your question. So maybe you want me answer how do I like the future competition between China and the US from the perspective of the cooperators like Brazil, like China, they cooperate with each other, but facing the challenges, how will be it like? Will both sides actually win and not impacted so much by the United States so negatively? Is that what you want
Yes,
me to answer?
exactly, exactly. Because
Okay.
there are a same perspective between Chinese people, Chinese ideology, and a lot of Latin America people as their thinks they are socialist people. Yeah,
Mm, mm.
socialism or Marxism.
Okay, okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Just like in the speech, I mentioned one very interesting phenomenon. You know, in Brazil, the previous president uh, has a nickname, uh, Trump, okay, Brazil Trump. Why? Because he was helped by the Trump administration. He won the election due to the help from the Trump administration. And the U.S. love him. The U.S. love the Trump administration loves him. But uh, does that actually impact the march of the cooperation between China and Mexico and Brazil? In facts, at the very beginning, it actually does have some negative impact, but gradually, the businessmen and the government they realized that uh, they have to be materialistic. They have to face the real world. What the United States can do is not comparable with what that can be done by China. And China is actually really trying to help Brazil by building everything, by uh, providing cooperation opportunities. Um, so why there's no reason that Brazil will now take that offer. And another example is during the pandemic. During the pandemic, uh, the central government in Brazil does not accept China's donation and the pandemic aid. But you know what happened? Many Chinese cities and Chinese provinces, companies, they themselves they donate. They are now donating through the name of the central China government, and those counterparts in Brazil they accept all the donations. You know, and the business um, companies they try to uh, convey uh, their disagreement with the central government. That's what happens in the reality. So it's kind of like nowadays, when every level of the uh, two parts are connected with each other, like the 3 by 3. Uh, I just mentioned 3 by 3. So people's connectivity, right? We have people's connectivity. That is very hard to break, even though you have another uh, you have another president. You have left wing or you have right wing. That does not impact the people's connectivity, right? People have their ideology, but that is not guilty. As a human, as a people, it's not guilty to have different ideology. Ideology is should not be the uh, reason that people that should not cooperate, right? It's my understanding. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Liu, for your answer. Is there any more questions from students or participants here? Maybe before we move to another question or participants who wants to ask, I would like to ask you maybe a little bit things in regards with as we know that most of countries in the world, not most, maybe many countries in the world are having so-called
Okay.
Chinatown in every part of major cities, especially. From what I have understood in your explanation, most of the business economics coming from the big companies and also, let's say, government level, and then put forward to the another government, B2B and G2G, something like that. But I'm kind of curious about this Chinatown. Is there a possibilities that Chinatown also becoming a hub, or let's say business hub for the major business, or even becoming a part of extension of this Chinese sphere in terms of economical influence? What do you think about this?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jian, for your question. Uh, well, to be frank, I'm not very I'm not very sure for the correct answer. I have been to some countries, Chinatown, but I think the in the Chinatown, they are Chinese. They are Chinese American. They are Chinese Brazilian. They are doing business with the local people. Yes, they know they know that place. But maybe some of them they don't speak Chinese anymore because for many generations, they live there and they have no difference with the local people. Um, but yeah, but that is a good connection. That is a great connection. Um, but how that is going to, how much and how significant the, the Chinese immigrants are going to impact on the China's cooperation with that country, I really haven't done any research about that. I will try answer the question by reading some new works. Sorry. Can you tell me your understanding? Can you
Yes,
tell me your
actually it is great. We already expected that a lot of, let's say, Chinese who migrate or becoming diaspora in America, Latin America, or even in North Africa are becoming Americanized or Latinized. But maybe the Chinatowns are remain as the extension of the traditions, customs, and culture of the China itself. Maybe for the major business, it will not so much significantly giving an influence, but hopefully, it will also contribute to the social transformation. Let's say making the the society more accepting another migrants and also something like that.
right?
Anyway,
Thank you.
maybe do we have another questions for Dr. Louis? Yes. Oh, our head of department. Please, Pak.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to ask one question. I've been enjoying your presentation, especially the conclusion. Is I found this to be very interesting because you said that when China wants to build a relationship with Latin American countries, it doesn't really take into account the political orientation, right? Left wing, left leftist or rightist political orientation. China doesn't take that into account, right? I think that's a very interesting statement in regards to the relationship with the Latin American countries. My question is, I've been intrigued with some uh, people that have, especially within the Asian region, yeah, and the countries surrounding Indonesia, like Pakistan, for example, and other countries, as well as in African countries. Some people have complained and accused China of supporting certain regimes that, in general, people would consider as uh, corrupt, corrupt regimes. Yeah, corruption. Like there is a lot of corruption in those countries, and also there have been a lot of human right violations in those countries. But those countries need support, like economic support from the international world. In this case, China, because China is offering a lot of capital for the development. So China is offering something that these countries cannot reject. But these countries, they are in a situation which are not favorable because there is a lot of corruption, a lot of human right violations. But somehow China, this is the accusation. It's not coming from me, but just from what I heard from people that they complain that why is China supporting those countries like Pakistan, for example, with a lot of intolerance and human rights violations. Why is China supporting a country like Pakistan or other countries in Africa with like deplorable social conditions, for example? Is it because the main or the primary motive is economic, so that it doesn't care about all the other considerations? The ironic thing is that the U.S., for example, claims that it will always take into account human rights, right? So how clean a government is in terms of corruption, it will take into account when building like economic cooperation. But in the case of Latin American countries, what we have seen is the U.S. has supported a lot of regimes that are in favor of U.S. economy or U.S. economic system, like capitalism. But the U.S. has not been in favor of those Latin American countries that are left-leaning. They're more leftists, right? So a lot of human rights violations have happened in those countries like Venezuela and Argentina when the leaders supported the U.S. So the U.S. would support them, and the U.S. didn't care about all these human rights violations. But now the accusation is going to China. Why is China supporting those countries when those countries are not in an ideal situation? So, what do you think about that? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Before I answer your question, to say, when I was in South Korea for my master degree, I had a very very good friend from Indonesia. He's from the Department of Information and Technology, some department like that. You have a department like that, right? And his name is also Bayu. He's my best friend, in Kyung University. To answer the question, I think it's a great question. Considering the human rights, corruption, and all other problems that that American country has. My understanding is like this. So besides the developed country, besides the Western world, besides United States, European countries, Australia, Japan, how many countries does not have those problems? Almost every country has those problems. For corruption, even for the United States, they are some of their government are also corrupted. Jackie Chan, he make movies all over the world. He just said, never think that the United States government is not corrupted. never think it like that. If it is not corrupted, I will not be able to make my movie. It's what Jackie Chan said. So considering those problems, what should we do? If we have those problems inside of our own country, what will we do? Some regions are more developed, some other regions, they are less developed. That happens in China. So should we help those undeveloped places to build their homeland, or should we ignore them? We just don't build them. We ignore them. We won't get accused. But is that right? Is that correct? I think, if those countries have problems, does not have aid, does not have loan, does not have opportunities to develop, they will be like that all the time. They will never change their situation until they develop, like what China has done. China used to be a corrupted country, a very, very corrupted country. And until recent decade, President Xi, anti-corruption is still on the way. Never stop. China. My friends told me, like before President Xi, when he has done any business, he has to give gifts or money to his contractors. But now, no, now he don't need to work anything like that. He just do business, do regular business, like he have never done before. He felt very happy. All businessmen felt happy, but that takes time. That takes time. As we know, the Kuznets, in the Kuznets curve, as the economic, the GDP per capita grow, corruption is going up. But finally, when it goes to a certain point, the corruption will go down. So we have to be patient and wait until the countries they grow, until the what is that? Until the uh, uh, until the mid-income group in the country they started to vote, and they started to accelerate the country to change, either corruption or any other, like human rights as well. China now is still accused by the West that China has human rights problems. I think that is just an excuse. It will never stop. And human rights problem does not only exist in China; it exists everywhere, and including the United States, including in EU, they have human rights problem as well. So as there's one thing that I think my understanding why there is a OBOR initiative that has been done by China. Uh, we know that um, now there is still a unilateral world, and the United States want to keep that unilateral world, want to keep that hegemony. Why? Because only some countries are willing to say no to the hegemony. China is one of them. And some other countries, maybe including Russia, including some countries, they're willing to say no. But what about the other countries? The other countries, do they not want to say no, or they are not willing to say no? Actually, not. They are willing to say no, but they don't have the power. They don't have the economy to support themselves to say no. So when every country became rich, when the world become rich, there will be no unilateral. It will change from unilateral into multilateral. That is exactly what the Chinese government wants. But when everybody gets rich, you will not, the United States, the European Union, they will not have the privilege. So that's what the Chinese government wants. This is my understanding. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any more questions? Or maybe your comments, Papayu? Papayu, do you have comments for the answer?
Yeah, I think that answered my question, the explanation by Professor Liu. So thank you so much for sharing your insight. That's the first time I heard such an opinion from a scholar. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you
I
so
think
much.
just because of the time, we actually run out of the time. So we would like to actually express our gratitude to Dr. Liu for sharing his lecture, his mind, his idea, and his how can I say knowledge about this lecture. And before that, I would like to give maybe the last statement to Pak Bayu, giving the gratitude. Pak Bayu, would you mind before we close this public lecture?
Yes. So thank you again for the second opportunity for me to say thank you to Professor Liu Yi for again sharing your insights and your expertise and your years of learning with us regarding, especially the topic today is on the Chinese policies, international policies on Latin American countries. So thank you so much, because within the hour or more than 1 hour that we have listened to your explanation, at least my understanding has improved a lot. I have learned a lot of things that I did not know before. So again, I'm sure a lot of the participants here, as well as the students of the department, American Studies department, have also gained a lot of very useful insights from your lecture and from the discussion as well. So again, thank you so much for being present with us. And now we would like to give you an as a token of our appreciation, a token of our gratitude, the
Oh,
e-certificate. the e-certificate, yeah, because it's electronic, because we cannot send it on the hard copy, but at least we would like to extend this gratitude to you in the form of this e-certificate for being a speaker and a lecturer in this public lecture with the theme of in the US backyard, China's impact on the Latin American economy and society. And I hope that we can see you again in the future for another insightful opportunity, either in the form of public lecture or a discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. My great honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Bayu, for your warm words to Dr. Yi Liu. So I would like to make a little bit announcement before we close. So this public lecture will not won't be realized only with the cooperation between Jiangxi University of Finance and Economics and the University of Indonesia. So we would like to tell all the audience that they are opening a lot of programs, including international trade with the same school with Dr. Yi Liu, and also the MBA program. And there is China Aid, which is scholarship from the Chinese government to a lot of students, international students, including Indonesian students, who want to apply for the program. I think they are very much welcome you all to apply for the program. So without further ado, I think a lot of you, all of you, please check it out. The Jiangxi University of Finance and Economics, and you can access the programs, whether it's international trade or business administration, and many more programs in the UFAP University. Anyway, again, we thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Liu, for your cooperations. We are very much honored to have you this evening, and hopefully we can see you in Indonesia. Anyway,
Thank
again,
you.
thank you. Good evening, and see you on other occasions. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
And
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bagi yang mau sholat silahkan, di sebelah sudah disediakan. Tapi mukenanya nggak ada ya? Mukenanya kamu pinjam ke gender deh. Ini mas, sejadah. Iya, iya sih, nggak ada.